This week on Quality Digest Live, we look at the state of the U.S. economy and your place within it.
Plus, can Six Sigma be simplified? We'll find out when we come back.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for June 1st, 2012. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Dirk Ducharme, Editor-in-Chief of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest publisher Mike Richman. We're going to kick things off this week with a pair of news items, both of which deal with the economy and what else in this election season? Jobs, jobs, jobs. All right. First up, a new book was just released from JOSSEY-BASS titled The Finch Effect, The 5 Strategies to Adapt and Thrive in Your Working Life. The book, authored by Nacy Carson, offers advice on how individuals can flourish within what Carson calls the gig economy. For many workers, the gig economy can be defined as an environment in which a series of gigs takes the place of one career-long stint with a single employer. The title of the book refers to Charles Darwin's well-known 19th century studies of finches in the Galapagos Islands. As Darwin discovered, the beaks of finches adapt over a period of time to allow the birds to best take advantage of food resources within their natural environment. This was the basis for Darwin's theory of natural selection, which of course underpins our current understanding of how evolution works. Now in the workplace, adaptation is also necessary to avoid extinction, which in this context means getting laid off. To embrace the gig economy and the uncertain nature of today's professional environment, Carson recommends that readers focus on relentless self-improvement, networking, and constantly keeping your eyes open for new and better opportunities. Loyalty? Well, in Carson's worldview, there isn't any from the employer side of the table, so there really shouldn't be any from employees either. You remember, Dirk, on last week's show,
we had a good story on
we talked
loyalty,
about this very issue. We talked about the disappearance of loyalty in the corporate world, and this book, is another example of that trend, which is ongoing.
Yep.
Now, I can't argue with the logic of Carson's argument, but I can quibble a little bit at the tone. Now, maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm foolish.
Okay.
I've been called worse, but I believe firmly that you get what you give in today's workplace, as you always have. You get what you give. Now, Dirk, in a moment, you're going to be talking about another news item that addresses what is now a really very interesting crossroads period of time for U.S. manufacturing. Industry in this country really could go either way in the near future, and one of the key factors determining whether it's going to be successful or a failure is whether or not those companies can find, develop, and retain the skilled workers that they need to succeed. Well, now how's that going to be possible if those companies aren't willing to demonstrate loyalty to their workforce? For example, by foregoing the layoffs that always seem to happen when management wants a quick boost from the financial markets, right? Now, on the other side of the spectrum, how can that success happen if the workers are always looking out for their next gig instead of focusing on improving the company and themselves within the context of their most important job, which is the job that they currently have, right? How can that work if that's what's going on in the marketplace? Now, these are really, really important questions, and Carson's book offers some really good insights into the issues involved, even if you don't agree with everything she writes, and that's fine. You can look at it from either perspective, but the book itself really raises some interesting points. So, to find out more about the story and the Finch effect, click on the story link just below the player page right there.
That's right.
Good stuff.
Well, in another story, you're right, it talks a little bit about a crossroads that we're at. In the United States right now, factories produce about 75% of what the country consumes. But according to a study by researchers from the University of Michigan, the right decisions by both business and political leaders could push that to 95%. And this is something a lot of people should pay attention to. According to Wally Hopp and Roman Kapuscinski of University of Michigan's Ross School of Business, how the United States shapes education policy, among other things, will determine whether manufacturing continues to rebound. The topic is discussed briefly in an article on our website from University of Michigan, A Turning Point for U.S. Manufacturing. So Hopp and Kapuscinski say that low-skilled jobs may be disappearing, but high-skilled jobs are not. Since 1980, high-skilled manufacturing jobs have increased by about 40%. All this despite a drop in overall manufacturing employment. So manufacturing employment is dropping, but high-skilled hiring is going up. That tells you a lot right there. And the need for skilled workers will only continue to grow as factories become even more automated and embrace more technology. The problem, according to this study, is that skilled production workers are harder to find in the United States than in other countries.
Other countries. What a surprise.
What a surprise.
Yep.
We'll get a little bit on that in a second. Education has long been a competitive advantage for the United States, but other countries have caught up. And again, that story we ran last week on what's going on with grade school kids and high school kids in India, the things are being taught.
STEM education, we talk about it all the time,
right.
The STEM education problems we have.
That's right, and other countries are ahead of us in many ways. So, according to Hopp and Kapuscinski, one of the problems is our U.S. preoccupation with college preparation and marginalizing vocational education and industrial arts program. It's always been about getting to college, and voc schools, voc tech schools have kind of in much less emphasis than they used to be. So Hopp says this in conclusion, quote, "If you talk about manufacturing long enough, all roads eventually lead to education. A huge determinant of how many manufacturing jobs will remain in the United States will be our ability to create a skilled workforce." So it all, I mean, we hammer on this a lot, it all comes back to education. Talk to anybody in an industry and they will tell you the same thing, that they're looking for a higher skilled workforce. And if it doesn't come out of the universities or voc tech schools, where's it going to come from?
That's right. And you know, jobs, I mean, this is always what it comes down to. When you talk about economy, what does the economy mean? The economy means, when you boil it down to the individual level, jobs. Hey, I need a good job, right? You need a good job. We all need good jobs. And I think that Hopp and Kapuscinski make a really good point here, that vocational educational training has really been shunted aside a little bit here, and it didn't used to be. It
used to be. It was huge.
We talked about the Ford plant back in the 20s and 30s, where that was a really great gold-plated education. You know, they looked for Ford-educated technical school graduates. So I mean, it's changed. It's changed a lot, and I think. English major here. I think that
that's a valuable one.
I think a lot of it is you look at how many kids are going into English or going into arts or liberal arts or languages or even medicine and law, as opposed to engineering or going to vocational schools. It's a problem.
Yeah, it's a problem.
So we're keeping our eye on this one.
Yep.
Good stuff. Okay. All right. Another thing we're keeping our eye on always is methodologies.
Sure.
And Six Sigma is a methodology that we talk about a lot here on the show. And
love it or hate it.
Love it or hate it. And this article actually gets to the heart of that really, really well. The whole love it, hate it, some kind of balance of Six Sigma.
Yeah, and this was an article by Jay Arthur.
Jay Arthur, the Nowhere Man, and it appeared in yesterday's issue of QDD called Dumb It Down or Simple It Up.
Right.
Great title. And this one got a lot of reads. A lot of you out there read this, and it also got a lot of comments, which were great. We'll get to some of those comments here in a little bit. And of course, Jay Arthur is the Nowhere Man, and he's a frequent contributor to Quality Digest Daily. We have articles from Jay all the time. And Jay's not only a contributor in terms of producing his own pieces, what's great about Jay is he comments a lot on other people's articles too. He really helps to further the conversation, and it talks a lot about Six Sigma. It talks a lot about statistical analysis and the simplification of this, and should it be simplified, should it not be simplified. He's really one that believes that it should be pushed down to the rank and file as much as possible. Jay's key points here, and I'm going to back up and just kind of set this up for you. He was talking with a colleague at the recent ASQ World Congress on Quality Improvement, WCQI, and he had a conversation where this colleague and he said, you know, hey, a lot of their customers are asking them to dumb down Six Sigma. It's too complicated. We want to just get the basics, right? And Jay's point is that, well, yeah, there's a point there. I mean, there's a good argument to be made that Six Sigma is overly complex, and that complexity distances it and detracts it from the ability to be implemented really by the popular adoption among the rank and file. The other thing is that Six Sigma, as it's currently done in the marketplace with the black belt system, the belted system of knowledge, it really creates specialists that are set apart from the culture of the organization. That they use things like jargon to separate themselves from the rest of the community that they work within. And then tools like SBC software really are only as good as the levels of use. In other words, the greatest tool ever invented is worthless if nobody uses it, or nobody knows how to use it. Now, we've talked to people, and we've had people contribute here with Quality Digest and Quality Digest Daily, like, for instance, we were talking to Paul Naismith, or Paul Naismith was writing about how he got Six Sigma training years ago, and he uses like 3 of the tools, of the 100 tools that he was trained in. And this is common. A lot of people that use this system, that use Six Sigma, don't use all the things that it can do. And I think the reason why is that the statistical underpinnings of Six Sigma are a little arcane. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I think that they're,
or they're presented that way.
Or they're presented that way.
And I think it's the bigger problem.
Six Sigma, as it was originally developed, in Motorola, 30 or more years ago, really was Six Sigma with a lowercase s.
Right.
It was a statistical analysis, and I'm not a statistician, so I don't want to get too deep into the nuts and bolts of this. But essentially, it dealt with the process and the shifting, the sigma shift of a process and process capability, and all these things were kind of wrapped into Six Sigma. But it became Six Sigma with a capital S through Jack Welch at GM in the 1990s, who adapted it as a defect reduction system, and kind of drove that philosophy through the General Electric system, GE, in the 1990s. So it became Six Sigma as a philosophy with a capital S. And now what it is really is it's kind of a mix of those things. You have these people that get their belts and they get trained in all these very detailed statistical analyses, but then the people in the organization who aren't belts, maybe some of them aren't even yellow belts, need to implement some of these changes, and they don't understand it. They don't understand why. They understand DMAIC somewhat. They understand the define, measure, analyze, improve, and control, but they don't understand necessarily why they're doing this or what the statistical underpinnings of this is. So, getting back to Jay's point, it's like, well, should we dumb this down? Should we dumb it down so that the rank and file can get Six Sigma in a kind of in a short little digest form, and just understand what they need to know about it, and not understand all the statistics that underpin
it? I think a lot of what's going on, and I think what he's alluding to in this is that, and it's not just Six Sigma. I mean, take your program du jour, except Six Sigma is now program du a couple decades.
Yeah, right. do decades.
But it becomes a kind of almost cultish in a way. It's you got your belts, and you got your black belt and your green belt and your yellow belt and your white belt and so on and so forth. And I think that does more toward making it seem outside of myself than something I can be involved with. And I think this is true of almost any kind of program, is if the program itself becomes the focus, then you're off on the wrong track. The program should not be the focus. The program should not be Six Sigma. The program should be, we're trying to improve. And we're all part of it.
Right.
And here's some tools, and I think it's a mindset, I think, more than anything.
The caste system. That Six Sigma, I think, encourages the master black belt to the black belt, to the green belt to the yellow belt, the white belt, as you indicate. I think limits it. It does limit it. It limits it in the mind of many of the people that really could use some of this knowledge.
Right.
Again, I mean, if you're just doing a very simple process, if you're involved in a manufacturing process on the floor, let's say, how much do you need to know about why the process is shifting or why you're doing this? I mean, you kind of don't need to know that much.
Well, this is kind of one of Davis Balistracci's big things. Paul Naismith mentioned it. Hey, I got my black belt training. I 100 tools. I use 6 of them. Balistracci just thinks the whole thing is kind of hogwash, as many people do, because he just says, unless you're in a particular type of industry where you really need these very high-end kind of statistics tools, you don't need them. You're teaching people stuff that this just doesn't make sense for them, and you're isolating them and alienating them.
And some people do need to know it, and some people want that as a career development thing. And that's fine. It should be available. And if you want to get to that level of it and have that understanding of it, that you should.
Yeah.
And it's great that Six Sigma is there to do that. But Jay's point is are you pushing it down to the DNA of the organization?
Right.
Again, the article was Dumb It Down or Simple It Up by Jay Arthur, and that was in yesterday's QDD. Now, I want to go to, I know we got to move on, but I want to go to a really interesting quote we had, or response, because we did get some good reader responses on this particular article, and read them all. When you get a chance, read them, because they're really pretty fascinating. And we had one, the gentleman's name, I think it was a gentleman, might have been a lady, Lee C.
We got it up on the slide here.
We got it up on the slide here, and we can take a look at that now. I'm going to read this off to you on Six Sigma jargon, and this is in response to Jay's article. The things that both amuse and dismay me about Six Sigma are the cultishness of the jargon and, yes, the statistical overkill, at least as some apply it. Both inhibit adoption by the lay community. As you said, complexity prevents adoption and usage. Or, as one of my old human factors pals used to say, a useless product or service won't be used. A useful product won't be used if it's not useful. You don't get extra credit for complexity. Well, that's really it. I mean, making something that doesn't have to be complex just for the sake of the cult. I don't want to.
Right.
I shouldn't use that term, but
well, some have.
Some have. But just making something complex just to make it complex, just because you're setting yourself apart, or you're having the jargonistic segment, doesn't make sense.
Right.
You want, it's there to be adapted. It's there to be used by as many people as possible, and that's how it's really going to succeed within an organization.
Right.
So,
interesting article.
Interesting article. Thank you, Jay, for providing that to us, and I encourage you all again. Right below here, as always, you can find the story link and you can check that out. Okay, well, we are going to get now to our tech corner this week, and this is a really good tech corner. We really like doing this because every once in a while we can have a guest here in the studio with us, and we do have that in this case. So we're going to turn now to the tech corner, which we're going to have in our Studio B, which is thousands and thousands of centimeters away. So as Dirk traverses that great distance, I'll tell you a little bit about what we're demoing today. It's a brand new Opto-Digital microscope from Olympus America Inc., the DSX 500. This tool has some truly unique features and functionalities, and to tell you all about it, I'm now going to throw it back to Dirk, who's joined by Robert Bellinger of Olympus. Take it away, guys.
Well, thanks, Mike. Yep, as Mike said, I'm here with Rob Bellinger, an applications engineer with Olympus. And Rob, you're here today to show us what, the Olympus DSX 500, right?
This is the new Olympus DSX 500, our Opto-Digital microscope. This tool is designed to save you time and money by ease of use, to produce images and data that can be used to make decisions. The way that it does this is by Olympus guaranteeing accuracy and repeatability of the tool. It can generate that by an auto calibration feature. So the system comes with a standard, and we can do auto calibrations with a one-touch interface.
Now, you say they guarantee accuracy. That's a little unusual for this instrument of this type, right?
Yeah, most digital microscopes you can take measurements with. You know, when you put a digital camera on your normal microscope, you can take measurements, but we don't see guarantees to those measurements. Okay. And customers are, put on the line for knowing if their measurements are accurate. The reason Olympus can guarantee this is we have the auto calibration capability, and we even go a step further by having a built-in gauge R&R, reproducibility and repeatability tool in the software that allows the user to have multiple users, multiple samples, and test measurements over that group to get repeatability specs on their samples and the users themselves. Okay. The system runs with an intuitive touchscreen operation. This improves a little bit of ergonomics. You're not hunched over the eyepieces like a normal microscope. We have a very high frame rate camera system in here. We have all of our normal observation methods with a one-button push observation modes. We have our bright field, our dark field. We do have a mix. I'll cover that in just a second. Okay. DIC and polarization. So most of your imaging techniques you see on a normal microscope. So what we have on the image here is bright field. We can switch to dark field, and you can see that images come around. What's unique about this tool is we have a segmented LED dark field capability. This allows us to turn on different segments to light from different angles on your sample, and you can actually rotate those segments around to see lighting. It comes in different angles.
So, and that'll help you choose what angle is best for what you're trying to image.
Yeah, trying to image or trying to see different features or defects on the surface.
Right.
When we have a new feature, something unique to our tool here is mix. This allows us to not only use dark field lighting, and we still have our segmented LED here, but it allows us to incorporate the bright field observation at the same time.
It looks like you can adjust the bright field as you need.
Exactly. So you can turn your bright field observation a little brighter or darker to get your background image that dark field usually cuts out, but still get all the edge enhancements of dark field. Okay. One observation modes, single push button. The system's meant for ease of use, though. An operator can come up, put their sample on very quickly, and they want to get their best image. The way to do that, with our built-in best image function, they select what they're running, maybe a flat type sample, and the tool will set up a whole bunch of pre-sampled images and switch between observation methods automatically.
So it's showing you on this side, this is a preview of what these different observation types would look like, and then you're just going to simply select the one that you feel is closest to what you're trying to do.
Exactly. Okay. So you have our bright field image, we have DIC images, and we also have some of our observation techniques like DIC with HDR, high dynamic range. Okay. And if you select these, you can go and a single selection would take you out. If we hit apply, it'll switch the microscope to that technique, and go back to your live
And then
image.
obviously once you're here, you could kind of fine tune it some more. So you could use the best image to get close, and then once you're on there, make some further adjustments here on the screen. Is that?
And even simpler than that, during the best image feature, we could have went into more advanced settings, and you could have fine tuned it in there as well. So you don't have to come out here and mess with a whole bunch of the sliders anymore.
Okay.
The unique thing about our image processing, our built-in image processing features, we have an auto contrasting tool, so a single push button, you can gain contrast on the surface of your image. We also have the built-in high dynamic range. I mentioned this a little bit. This is built-in HDR imaging to add contrast and the exposure rates in the dark areas. It brings them a little brighter, and the really bright, high reflective areas dims down. But the downside to HDR, it gets a great image, but if you want to move around the sample quickly, it doesn't have the fastest refresh rate. Olympus designed a new imaging technique for image processing called WIDER. It's wide dynamic range. This reduces glare and brings up the intensity in the dark areas while still having a very fast refresh rate for the screen movement.
And the only downside of this is you don't get quite the surface enhancement as you might get with HDR.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you can live without that, this is going to be a much faster way to go.
Much faster. Works great for samples that have high amount of glare that you want to suppress. We also have a feature called color highlighting here that allows you to select a color range with a dropper tool. Select like this red range here, and when you activate it, it turns everything else black and white or grayscale.
Okay.
So all the blue colors here went grayscale except for our red image. So as you're scanning around your sample, the red really sticks out if you're looking for that color defect on your surface.
Okay.
And
so this is kind of another way to highlight particular types of features or particular types of defects based on color. All right.
Yeah, and if you're looking for a specific color on your sample and it's random, you can focus in on just that color, move around quickly, and it sticks out.
Yes. Pops right out. All right.
So the touch screen, we have a built-in Opto-Digital zoom feature.
Now this is interesting. This is I noticed you
pinch to zoom.
You can basically kind of if you've got an iPhone or iPad or that type of thing, this works kind of the same way. So your zoom is really, and you actually that's a mechanical. I mean, you're actually controlling the optics when you do that.
The optical zoom built in, yeah.
All
so you're not digitally zooming, you're not losing resolution. We can optically zoom up quite a ways to get very high magnification ranges by using just one objective. We do still use our world-class optics from Olympus. We can use our entire range of UIS-2 optics, and Olympus did specifically design lenses for this microscope as well.
Okay.
The nice thing about this is your touchscreen interface allows you to go where you want. You can move by fields of view, and you can do some more unique things with stitching functions. We have the ability to do stitching with a motorized stage. We can do high quality stitching where you mark 2 points, like a top left corner and a bottom right corner of your entire area you want to stitch, and it will stitch that together with high quality automatically.
Okay.
And it can even do your through focus at the same time. So we can get a three-dimensional image stitched together in a large panoramic.
All right.
But if you're looking to get a quicker result, you can do a live panorama where we do a simple 2D stitch. We activate it here, and with the touchscreen interface, we can just simply drag, and this starts stitching it for us together.
So this is actually moving the stage and capturing more images and then stitching those images together as it goes.
Exactly. It moves the stage to where we want to drag here, and it stitches these images together for us. And when we're done, we can do two unique features. We can save this as a brand new image by just hitting complete here, but if we also select to use it as a map image, when we go back out, so now I hit complete, this will save it as a brand new image, and it's still calibrated. We can do our measurements on this 2D image, point-to-point measurements, but we can also import that large stitch area and use it as our map image if we wanted to.
Okay.
To do, you know, quick stitch of an area and you want to move around quickly, you can drive through your map. If you notice in the map image here, if you zoom in on an area, it shows you where you're zoomed into.
So okay, so there's a little green box over on that right-hand side, which is with the area you're actually looking at on the entire image that you've stitched together.
Exactly. This could either be the large stitched area, or it could be just a low mag image.
Right.
And you can actually move this around to any position you want, and the stage will drive right to that position.
Pretty neat.
Quick and easy interfaces is what
I was
it's
going to
all
say,
about.
the interface is very simple on this. I really like this. I like your we haven't really touched on it, but you've got up on top, you've got kind of your three major things. You can do your imaging, your measurement, and your reports, and each of those brings up a contextual screen there.
Yeah, and let's get to that.
Okay.
Downside to high resolution compound optics is you get this out of focus information and in focus information. If you want, we can gather all that information into one focus plane by performing an EFI image down here.
Now, EFI means what?
Extended focal imaging, where we create a one focused image for all the focus planes. Or we can even capture a 3D image. To set a 3D image, really all we have to do is focus down to the bottom. And I'm focusing with the scroll wheel on the mouse. You could also use the focus buttons here. But you just hit start at the bottom of focus, and then you go to your very top of focus. This would be the top of these pads here.
Okay.
And you hit end on that, and then you hit acquire, and it's using our image processing technique, any of our observation modes, and it automatically captures this all-in-focused image for us.
Okay, so it's stepping and then focusing, stepping then focusing. Is that what's?
It's actually stepping from bottom of focus to top and capturing all the focus slices between there, and integrating it into one focused image using kind of a imaging technique to cut out the out-of-focus data. Okay. So when you're all done, you get an all-in-focused image. Right. And since we selected 3D here, it captured all the height information since it knows very precisely where you're going.
Oh, very cool.
We can render a three-dimensional image, zoom in and out with our touch screen.
And you can rotate it, you can control that image just with your finger on the touch screen.
Rotate it with the finger on the touch screen, or you can use your backup mouse if you'd like. The other thing, you talked about measurements. We can switch to this. We can get live measurements right on a profile. So if you're interested in this peak here down to the base.
So it's a cross-section we're looking at right there. Okay.
Cross-sectional profile. This allows you to get height information. So we can take and spit our height data right over to a data sheet. And that data sheet can be put out to Excel.
All right.
You can also do different measurement types like line width, angle measurements, curvatures, cross-sectional area. Since we have 3 dimensions, we can also measure volume and surface area as well. Some of the other just basic 2Ds, like your normal microscope, upright compound microscope with a digital camera, we can still go into just geometric measurements and take 2-dimensional measurements. Something like center of circle to center of circle, marking 3 points here to 3 points down here would give you a distance measurement between the center of circles here.
All right.
All this information gets exported out. Say we go back to our profile here in our 3D image. We can also show, this is the raw color image, but we can show height data and a height image like this.
All right.
We can even show wireframe view to see where curvatures happen on your sample surface.
Right.
The nice thing, once you take all of your measurements and gather all your images that you want, simple one-button push to create your report. And we will generate a template that can be customized and generate a report here showing your line profile, your actual 3D image that can be rotated live on the screen here.
Okay.
And when you're done with this, this gets exported to either Microsoft Word or PDF format.
Wow.
Simple work process, like you said, imaging, measurements, and reports.
Is this a fairly new product, or?
This just launched for us a month ago.
And
it's very new, cutting edge.
What markets is this going into predominantly?
This is going to be in a pretty large range of industrial type markets. It could be from medical devices to circuitries to your even semiconductor applications, because we have a broad range of optics choices.
All right. Well, Rob, thanks. I appreciate you showing up. This was the Olympus DSX 500, and Rob Bellinger, thanks for joining us. Rob is applications engineer with Olympus. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Back to you, Mike.
Thanks, Dirk, and thanks, Rob, of course, and thanks to Olympus America for letting us show off the DSX 500 Opto-Digital microscope. Great stuff there. We always love bringing to you a brand new product on Tech Corner. It's our pleasure to bring those to you, and I hope you enjoy them. And certainly let us know if there's other products that you know of out there that you want us to show off on Tech Corner. We'd love to bring them to you as well. All right, Dirk.
Back from Studio B.
You're back thousands of centimeters. How? Yeah, well,
it's quite a run.
You got your sneakers on.
Worked up a sweat.
So good stuff there. Yes, there you go. Thank you. There we go. Great, good stuff. Thanks, Dirk. Yeah,
thanks.
That was good. Okay, well, that's our show for the week. But before we close, I'd like to remind you all that Hexagon 2012 Think Forward starts this Monday. Yes, this Monday the 4th. This is a big event now. It's a user conference unlike any other user conference you've seen.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, baby.
Boy, especially with 2,000 attendees,
yep.
Some of your closest friends from across the world. Dirk and I and the rest of the QDL crew are going to be there at the MGM Grand in Vegas next week, and we'll be looking at some great new technologies and talking with several industry thought leaders. So we're going to bring it all to you on a special episode of this show, QDL, which is going to happen special day, Wednesday, June 6th at a special time, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. So look out for it right here at qualitydigest.com.
That's right, and we're bringing you some great content in QDD this week as well, starting with an article titled "The Circle System" from Jim Ruff. This piece offers a people-oriented approach to quality improvement that we think you'll really enjoy. It's an unusual piece, a little different, some really different thinking on how groups and people work together.
Yes.
And it has very wide application, not just within industry, but Jim, he touches on it in this article. It actually has application within political systems as well. He hints at it in here. I've talked to him more on this, but you should read it. It's an interesting article.
It's going to be great. And that's
Jim
next
Ruff.
week. Early,
Yep.
We're not sure if it's Monday or Tuesday yet, but it's early next week.
Right, early next week.
Early
right.
next week. So look out for that in QDD. Okay, well, that's the show. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you again to Olympus and Rob for coming down and showing us the new DSX 500 microscope, Opto-Digital microscope. We had a good time with that. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week again from Hexagon Think Forward. We'll see you then. Have a great weekend.
So long.
Bye.
Opto-Digital.